Pay close attention, because what unfolds today could become one of those moments people only recognize after it has already changed them. Most will treat it like an ordinary date on the calendar, another lunar cycle passing overhead without consequence. That assumption could cause them to overlook something profoundly important. The energy arriving on July 14th is not simply another new moon moving through the heavens. It represents a rare emotional renewal whose influence reaches far beyond temporary feelings. Instead of creating a passing emotional wave, it has the potential to reshape the very ground beneath your inner world. If over the past several days you have noticed an unfamiliar weight resting in your chest, an almost irresistible urge to withdraw from noise, or a longing to return home that has nothing to do with a physical address and everything to do with rediscovering a feeling of genuine peace, then what you are experiencing is not random. There is a deeper reason your mind and body are responding this way, and before this journey is over, that reason will become unmistakably clear. Stay with me because the explanation changes how you understand everything that has been happening. Before we can appreciate the gift arriving today, we have to acknowledge what your spirit has already endured. The first 2 weeks of July have placed enormous pressure on countless people, even those who could not explain why they suddenly felt emotionally exhausted, mentally scattered, or strangely disconnected from themselves. Perhaps you blame stress, lack of sleep, or ordinary life. Yet beneath those explanations, something much larger was unfolding. It was as though your entire nervous system had been challenged from every direction at once, leaving you wondering why even simple moments required extraordinary effort. The remarkable truth is that today does not introduce another layer of strain. It signals the beginning of release. Not superficial comfort that fades after a good night's sleep, but a deeper form of relief capable of changing the way you relate to yourself and the world around you. For 3 zodiac signs in particular, this Cancer new moon carries an impact so profound that calling it a simple fresh start almost feels inadequate. It arrives as the kind of turning point that can restore hope after prolonged uncertainty. That is why it deserves your full attention. Once you understand the cosmic mechanics behind everything that has been building toward this moment, you may never look at this day the same way again. To understand the significance of today's sky, we first need to revisit the sequence of events that brought us here. Because every challenge had a purpose, even when it felt unfair. The opening weeks of July have created one of the most electrically charged astrological periods in recent memory. Many people have described feeling as though reality itself became unpredictable, almost as if the familiar rules governing daily life temporarily stopped working. Objects disappeared for no logical reason. Conversations suddenly exploded into conflict. Technology malfunctioned at the worst possible moments. Carefully organized plans unraveled without warning. If your life seemed to lose its normal rhythm, there is an astrological explanation. On July 4th, Mars formed a conjunction with Uranus in Gemini. Imagine a powerful surge of electricity racing through the collective nervous system. That is the quality of energy this alignment carried. It favored abrupt disruptions, startling discoveries, and situations that demanded immediate decisions before anyone felt fully prepared. Some people found themselves facing confrontations they never expected. Others witnessed structures they believed were completely secure suddenly reveal hidden fractures. Stability was interrupted without permission, forcing change whether people welcomed it or not. Yet that conjunction represented only the beginning of a much broader story. The same current activated an exceptionally uncommon geometric relationship involving the 3 outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These are not planets known for creating temporary emotional fluctuations. Their influence extends across generations, shaping collective evolution over many years. When Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto enter harmonious relationship with one another, history itself seems to gather momentum. Change no longer arrives gradually. It accelerates. Even if you could not identify the astrological reason, many people sensed that acceleration physically, emotionally, and spiritually. There was an unmistakable feeling that the old pace of life had disappeared and something irreversible had begun moving beneath the surface. Then, on July 6th, another powerful shift arrived when the Sun formed a square with Saturn. If the Mars and Uranus conjunction felt like an unexpected lightning strike, the Sun square Saturn felt like running directly into an immovable barrier. After being propelled forward with incredible intensity, it was as though the universe suddenly applied the brakes with overwhelming force. Energy that had been racing outward became compressed. Motivation collided with limitation. Some people encountered emotional resistance they never anticipated. Others found themselves overwhelmed by responsibilities they had postponed for far too long, feeling those obligations become so heavy that even breathing seemed more difficult than usual. Just as everyone attempted to regain their balance, another significant development emerged. Only one day later, Neptune stationed retrograde. In that moment, illusions began dissolving. Aspirations that once appeared unquestionable invited closer examination. Ideals that had provided comfort suddenly demanded honesty. The stories people had been telling themselves about their lives could no longer remain untouched. Neptune quietly drew back the curtain, encouraging everyone to look beyond comforting appearances and confront deeper truths. That sequence of events created the emotional landscape you've been navigating. None of it was accidental, and none of it happened in isolation. Every disruption, every uncomfortable realization, every unexpected pause prepared the ground for what arrives today. After weathering that storm, the sky now presents something profoundly different. Instead of another wave demanding endurance, it offers refuge. Instead of another lesson delivered through pressure, it extends an invitation to rest emotionally for the first time in weeks. This is why today carries such a distinctive feeling, almost like rediscovering a forgotten part of yourself. On July 14th at 5:40 in the morning, the Sun and Moon unite in Cancer. That detail alone makes this new moon extraordinary, because Cancer is the natural home of the moon. Among all 12 zodiac signs, Cancer provides the environment where lunar energy expresses itself without compromise or disguise. Here, the moon does not need to suppress emotion, seek approval, or adapt itself to expectations imposed by others. It simply exists in its purest form, intuitive, protective, emotionally honest, and deeply nurturing. When a new moon occurs in this sign, it becomes much more than the symbolic beginning of another lunar cycle. It is like placing a precious seed into the richest and most nourishing soil imaginable. The intention planted during this lunation centers on emotional security, not the fragile sense of safety created by locked doors, financial stability, or external certainty, but the quieter confidence that develops within the heart. It is the inner knowing that whispers, "You're already enough," even when the outside world remains unpredictable. Yet the story becomes even more compelling because this new moon does not stand alone. Right beside the Sun and Moon sits Mercury, and Mercury is retrograde, adding another profound layer to everything now unfolding. There is one detail about this new moon that many people misunderstand the moment they hear it. And if you stop listening too soon, you may miss the very reason this lunation feels so deeply personal. The instant people hear that Mercury is retrograde, their minds jump to delayed flights, confusing conversations, misplaced messages, or technology refusing to cooperate. Those experiences certainly belong to Mercury retrograde, but they barely scratch the surface of what is happening here. The alignment taking place today reaches far beyond everyday inconveniences. With Mercury retrograde sitting alongside this Cancer new moon, the doorway opening before you is not leading toward a future disconnected from your past. Instead, it is inviting you back to something unfinished, something that has quietly remained alive beneath the surface of your life. waiting for the right moment to be understood differently. The opportunity arriving now is not brand new. Its roots extend into memories you believed were behind you. Relationships that ended before your heart had fully caught up, chapters that closed before you were emotionally prepared. Or pieces of yourself that disappeared because circumstances demanded survival instead of healing. Mercury is turning your attention inward and backward, at the same time guiding your awareness through old emotional landscapes that shaped the way you trust people, the way you protect your heart, the way you decide whether the world feels safe or dangerous. This is why the energy feels so unusual. You are not simply being asked to forget yesterday and embrace tomorrow. You are being offered the rare privilege of beginning again while carrying the wisdom that only experience can provide. There is extraordinary power in that difference. Imagine returning to a story you have repeated in your mind for years, except this time you are no longer reading it through the eyes of fear. Instead, you are seeing it through the eyes of someone who has survived, someone who understands more than they once did. The old wound may still exist in memory, the old emotional pattern may still reveal itself, and the familiar narrative may still echo inside your thoughts. But this time you possess something you lacked before. You possess perspective. Rather than allowing pain to dictate the ending, you now have the chance to rewrite that story from a place of strength, clarity, and emotional maturity. That is the quiet miracle Mercury retrograde is supporting during this new moon. It is not dragging you backward to trap you inside the past. It is bringing you back only long enough for you to leave differently than you did the first time. If you have been wondering why your body has seemed determined to slow you down, why your emotions have become unusually sensitive, or why solitude has felt more comforting than stimulation, the answer begins here. Earlier, I mentioned that there was a specific reason your body has been drawing you inward, and now the larger picture starts to reveal itself. Your nervous system is undergoing a profound recalibration. The Mars and Uranus conjunction that occurred earlier this month did not limit its influence to external events alone. Yes, it disrupted schedules, created surprises, and shook familiar routines. But it also reached into your internal landscape, altering the way your mind and body respond to the world around you. You may have noticed sounds feeling sharper than usual. Busy environments may suddenly drain your energy in ways they never did before. Ordinary conversations might leave you feeling exhausted instead of connected. Even casual social interactions may seem strangely overwhelming. If any of this sounds familiar, it does not automatically mean something is wrong with you. It does not necessarily mean you are withdrawing from life or falling into emotional darkness. Instead, your system may simply be preparing for something much quieter and much more important. The Cancer new moon carries an energy that moves inward before it ever expresses itself outward. It is not asking you to make dramatic announcements, launch ambitious projects, or prove yourself to anyone else. Its purpose is far more intimate. It invites an internal transformation that begins the moment you stop abandoning your own emotional needs in order to satisfy everyone else's expectations. There comes a moment when healing begins. Not because the outside world changes, but because you make a silent decision that your own heart deserves the same loyalty you have spent years giving away. That is the revolution this new moon encourages. Your body often recognizes that shift before your conscious mind can explain it. This is why silence has become so attractive lately. Your nervous system is reducing unnecessary noise so that something more authentic finally has space to emerge. Beneath responsibilities, endless obligations, constant productivity, and the pressure to keep moving forward, your own inner voice has been waiting patiently. It has never stopped speaking. It was simply buried beneath everything else, demanding your attention. Today, perhaps for the first time in a very long while, that voice becomes clear enough to hear. In many ways, this is the new moon communicating with you before the exact alignment even arrives. If you have already sensed these subtle changes unfolding inside yourself, it may be because you are more connected to this energy than you have given yourself credit for. Yet there is another dimension to this new moon that deserves your attention, because it transforms this lunation into something distinctly different from previous Cancer new moons. The Sun, the Moon, and retrograde Mercury, all gathered together in Cancer, are simultaneously forming a square to Saturn in Aries. That single detail changes everything about how this energy expresses itself. Saturn is not known for choosing the comfortable path. Its purpose is never to preserve illusions simply because they feel reassuring. Instead, Saturn examines every structure you rely upon and quietly asks whether it possesses enough strength to survive reality. It governs boundaries, responsibility, discipline, and the kind of wisdom that cannot be inherited but must be earned through lived experience. As Saturn forms this challenging square to such emotionally sensitive Cancer energy, friction naturally emerges. You may notice it physically as tension across your chest. Emotionally, you may feel a sincere desire to trust, forgive, or soften, only to discover another part of yourself immediately becoming cautious. Old protective habits may suddenly return. Familiar emotional walls may rise without warning. Inner voices shaped by past disappointments may whisper that vulnerability is dangerous, that lowering your defenses will only lead to another painful lesson. At first glance, that resistance can feel discouraging, but there is a deeper truth hidden inside it. The tension created by Saturn is not evidence that healing is being denied. It is evidence that healing is being strengthened. Saturn is not attempting to prevent your growth. It is carefully constructing the foundation beneath it. Think of the difference between building a home upon imagination alone and building one upon solid stone. One may appear beautiful for a moment, but only one survives the weight of time. The emotional security this Cancer new moon offers cannot depend upon fantasies, wishful thinking, or the hope that another person will someday complete what feels incomplete inside you. It must be created from within, supported by emotional structures strong enough to endure whatever life brings next. Saturn serves as the architect, ensuring that the foundation beneath your healing is genuine, dependable, and capable of supporting the extraordinary developments waiting beyond this moment. That preparation matters because, for 3 zodiac signs in particular, what follows carries exceptional significance. If you are a Cancer Sun, Cancer Moon, or Cancer Rising, this alignment speaks directly to you. More than marking another chapter in your season, this new moon represents a defining personal moment. Its placement falls directly into your first house, the house associated with identity, selfhood, and the deepest understanding of who you are beneath every role you have ever played. Over the past several years, many Cancers have lived beneath an emotional pressure that can be difficult to explain to someone who has never experienced it personally. Pluto's extended journey through your opposing sign has steadily transformed relationships, shifted power dynamics, and challenged partnerships in ways that repeatedly forced you to question your own identity whenever it seemed connected to someone else's expectations. You've been learning who you are when no one else is defining you, and that process has been far more demanding than most people realize. Although that Pluto transit has officially come to an end, its influence did not disappear the moment the planets moved apart. What lingered afterward was far more subtle, settling into your daily life as emotional fatigue, constant alertness, and the deeply ingrained instinct to place everyone else's well-being ahead of your own, until you barely recognized the person left standing. If you have carried the belief that your value depended upon how much you could give, how much you could tolerate, or how much of yourself you could quietly sacrifice without complaint, then what unfolds today marks the beginning of the end for that pattern. With Mercury retrograde moving through your first house alongside this new moon, something extraordinary is taking place beneath the surface. The pieces of yourself that were scattered across years of compromise are beginning to return. every moment you abandoned your own confidence to avoid conflict, every dream you quietly placed aside because someone convinced you it was unrealistic, every opinion you swallowed because remaining silent seemed easier than risking misunderstanding. All of those forgotten fragments are being gathered back into your identity. This is why the energy feels so personal. You are not becoming someone else. You are reclaiming the version of yourself that existed before fear taught you to become smaller. The greatest gift this new moon offers, Cancer, is not simply emotional comfort. It is the realization that your existence has never required permission. You no longer have to prove that your needs deserve attention. You no longer have to explain why your heart deserves protection. You no longer have to reduce your own light simply so another person can feel more comfortable beside you. The square from Saturn ensures this transformation reaches far beyond temporary inspiration. Saturn demands commitment. It asks that your healing become a lasting structure instead of an emotional promise that disappears when life becomes difficult again. Choosing yourself under this influence is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of sovereignty. It is the quiet decision to recognize your own worth without waiting for anyone else to confirm it first. Watch carefully what happens when Cancer stops apologizing for existing exactly as they are. Their physical vitality begins changing because constant emotional tension is no longer draining their system. Their natural magnetism becomes stronger because authenticity attracts what self-denial always repelled. Opportunities, relationships, and blessings that seemed delayed begin finding them because the invisible barrier created through endless self-sacrifice finally dissolves. This month becomes the moment the emotional dam gives way, allowing everything that has patiently waited on the other side to begin flowing toward you. Now let us turn toward Leo, because your story unfolds in a very different way, yet it carries a miracle no less remarkable. Listen closely, Leo, because much of what is happening now will be invisible before it becomes unmistakable. This Cancer new moon falls within your 12th house, the realm associated with the subconscious, hidden realities, quiet endings, and the invisible preparation that always comes before genuine beginnings. Under ordinary circumstances, a 12th house lunation encourages retreat, reflection, restoration, and the gradual softening of the ego. It is usually a season for stepping away from external attention, so the soul can reorganize itself in private. Yet your present circumstances are anything but ordinary. While this deeply internal new moon is performing its healing work within the most hidden part of your chart, Jupiter, the planet connected with miracles, expansion, extraordinary opportunity, and abundant fortune, has just entered your first house, your own sign, your personal domain. Jupiter's arrival in Leo is among the most significant cycles you can experience, appearing only once every 12 years. Whenever this transit arrives, it carries the potential to enlarge nearly every area of life. Doors begin opening that you never knocked upon. Recognition appears without relentless pursuit. Your presence becomes naturally magnetic, drawing supportive people, valuable resources, meaningful opportunities, and remarkable breakthroughs into your orbit with surprising ease. Yet the deeper mechanism behind this timing is something many people overlook. The Cancer new moon serves as the doorway through which Jupiter's greatest blessings become fully accessible. Before expansion reaches its highest potential, something old must first be released. A vessel already overflowing cannot receive anything new. Likewise, you cannot fully inhabit the brightest expression of your future while continuing to carry the emotional weight of your past. That is exactly what this 12th house new moon is accomplishing. It gently brings forward every hidden fear, every lingering insecurity, every quiet internal story that has repeatedly whispered, "You are not prepared," that you are somehow unworthy, or that the future you dream about belongs to someone else instead. Mercury retrograde assists by uncovering those familiar narratives and placing them clearly before your awareness. Once they become visible, they no longer possess the same power to unconsciously direct your choices. You are finally able to release them with intention instead of carrying them automatically. As that emotional space opens, Jupiter begins filling it with something entirely different. Confidence replaces hesitation. Possibility replaces limitation. Expansion replaces survival. By the time the Sun enters Leo on July the 22nd, the transformation may feel astonishing. Not because you have invented a new identity, but because you have finally stopped hiding from the one that has always belonged to you. The miracle waiting for Leo is understanding that the period of darkness preceding sunrise was never evidence that something had gone wrong. It was the sacred preparation required before your light could expand without restraint. Trust every quiet moment unfolding now, because what waits beyond it has the capacity to surpass even your highest expectations. Scorpio, your experience carries another kind of miracle, one centered not on identity, but on direction itself. Something is beginning to change that you have quietly longed for, even if you never possessed the words to describe it. This Cancer new moon activates your ninth house, the part of the chart connected with belief systems, higher understanding, spiritual perspective, and the personal stories through which you decide what is possible for your future. Because Cancer shares the water element with Scorpio, this energy does not struggle to reach you. It moves naturally into your emotional landscape, flowing with remarkable ease, like rainfall finding a river that has always been waiting to receive it, or the first deep breath after realizing you have unconsciously been holding tension for far too long. The nourishment offered through this new moon arrives exactly where your system has been running on empty. For an extended period, many Scorpios have depended upon determination, relentless vigilance, and pure willpower to keep moving forward. That strategy may have carried you through difficult seasons, but it also demanded an enormous emotional cost. This lunation begins softening the hardened places within you, gently reshaping your relationship with trust, safety, and the beliefs that quietly govern your decisions. At the very same time this inner renewal unfolds, another extraordinary development is taking place. Jupiter in Leo is simultaneously amplifying the energy of your 10th house. That activation takes place in your 10th house, the area of the chart connected with your career, public image, reputation, and the legacy you are building in the eyes of the world. Astrologically, this combination has long been recognized as one of the strongest indicators of meaningful professional advancement. It can correspond with promotions that seemed impossible only weeks earlier, recognition from individuals whose influence carries real weight, or opportunities that permanently redirect the course of your professional life. Yet there is an essential connection between these transits that many people overlook, and understanding it changes everything. The external breakthrough cannot fully arrive until the internal transformation is complete. For Scorpio, this principle is especially important because your instinct has always been to maintain control whenever uncertainty appears. When emotional safety feels threatened, your natural response is to tighten your grip. You become more strategic, more observant, more guarded. Every decision is carefully measured, every emotion carefully managed, every version of yourself presented to the world designed first for protection rather than genuine expression. That approach has helped you survive difficult seasons, but survival and expansion are not the same experience. Even when fear hides behind competence, determination, or confidence, people instinctively recognize the energy beneath the surface. They respond not only to what you say, but to the emotional frequency you carry. As the Cancer new moon begins its quiet work within you, something extraordinary unfolds. The deep emotional reassurance it offers gradually replaces the constant need to remain on alert. A profound sense of inner stability begins taking root. Instead of questioning whether you are supported, you begin feeling it. Instead of wondering whether the ground beneath you is secure, You simply know it. That subtle change alters everything about your presence. You stop trying to project authority because authority naturally radiates from someone who no longer needs to prove it. Your energy becomes calmer, stronger, and unmistakably authentic. This is precisely when professional opportunities begin recognizing you rather than the other way around. What arrives is not merely the reward for relentless effort. It reflects the person you have become through this inner evolution. For Scorpio, the true miracle lies in uniting two qualities that have often remained separated throughout your life. Your ambition has always been powerful, and your vulnerability has often remained carefully protected. This new moon invites those two forces to finally work together instead of existing in opposition. When determination is supported by emotional openness rather than fear, there is very little that can limit your growth. Pay close attention to your professional life throughout the next 90 days. The developments unfolding during that period may exceed expectations in ways that are difficult to imagine today. Yet, as significant as this new moon is, it should not be mistaken for the highest point of July. It serves a different purpose. It becomes the foundation upon which everything else during the remainder of the month depends. The final 2 weeks of July carry tremendous astrological intensity, and without the emotional stability established now, those later developments could easily feel overwhelming. The first major shift arrives on July 23rd, when Mercury stations direct. The confusion that accompanied the retrograde gradually begins dissolving. Questions that seemed impossible to answer suddenly become remarkably clear. Every memory you revisited, every conversation you reconsidered, every realization you quietly processed during the retrograde period starts organizing itself into practical understanding. Decisions that once felt complicated become surprisingly obvious. Discussions that stalled begin moving again. The direction you've been searching for slowly emerges from uncertainty, allowing you to move forward with confidence rather than hesitation. Only a few days later, on July 26th, two exceptionally important astrological events occur almost side by side, creating another powerful turning point. Saturn stations retrograde, inviting a careful review of every boundary you have established, every responsibility you have accepted, and every structure supporting your current life. Saturn asks only one question, but it is a question capable of transforming everything. Is what you have built genuine enough to endure? On that very same day, the lunar nodes also change signs, marking the beginning of a collective cycle that extends across the next 18 months. The North Node enters Aquarius, drawing humanity toward innovation, technology, collective awareness, and entirely new ways of thinking together. At the same time, the South Node moves into Leo, encouraging the release of outdated attachments connected with ego, the desire for personal recognition, and identities maintained more for performance than authenticity. These are not minor astrological adjustments. They represent large-scale shifts affecting the collective direction of society itself. Navigating such profound change requires more than intelligence or ambition. It requires an inner foundation so stable that external upheaval cannot shake it. That foundation is not created through constant activity or endless preparation. It begins quietly, here, during the sacred stillness of the Cancer new moon. Within silence, within reflection, within the darkness of the lunar cycle, something stronger than external certainty begins taking shape. Consider this your personal invitation. The world around you continues moving faster than ever before. The outer planets are participating in transformations that reshape generations and influence civilizations. The pace of change continues accelerating, and amid all of that movement, the universe has created one deeply restorative moment, one protective evening dedicated not to achievement, but to reconnection. It quietly extends a single invitation. Return home, not to a building, not to a familiar address, but to the deepest part of yourself. As the moon becomes dark in Cancer today, you stand before a meaningful choice. You may allow the night to pass unnoticed, treating it like every other evening, or you may embrace the opportunity hidden within its stillness. You may choose to become completely present. You may finally allow yourself to experience emotions you have spent months, perhaps years, trying to outrun. You may soften without becoming weak. You may lower your defenses while remaining firmly supported by the kind of lasting structure Saturn asks you to build. If you allow yourself to enter that place of genuine emotional security, a remarkable realization becomes possible. The turbulence outside you loses its power over the peace established within you. For much of your life, your heart may have searched for safety in relationships, achievements, familiar places, success, or control itself. Yet the lesson offered by today's sky gently reveals a different truth. Everything you believed would eventually make you feel secure was only pointing towards something that has existed within you all along. This Cancer new moon simply provides the moment when you are finally able to recognize it for yourself. Before we finish, I want to sincerely thank you for spending this time here. If today's message resonated with you and you would like to continue exploring these astrological insights together, I would truly appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. Your encouragement helps make future content possible. I also invite you to share your own thoughts, experiences, or reflections in the comments, because your journey may inspire someone else who is walking a similar path. Until we meet again, take good care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.